Hi everyone, it's me, Ferdinand the Cardboard Sacker, here with a Kickstarter interview. I'm here with Robin David.
Hello.
Did you say hello?
I did. Hello.
Oh, okay, I didn't came through. But anyway, it probably came through the other side. But I'm very excited today to talk about his game, Luzon Rails. Luzon Rails is a game on Kickstarter right now. You can check out. It's currently at 230 backers, 6,000, and over just 6,000 people has backed it financially. So, first of all, Robin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I sent you over some questions, but we'll just go ahead and just go through them. So first of all, where you're from and how did you start playing board games, and why did you become a board game designer?
Right. Well, currently I live in Ireland, in the Midlands of Ireland. But I first got into board games. I used to live in Singapore, and I'd played board games all my life, like a little bit, kind of mass market things. But then when I was living in Singapore, looking to make friends and things, find a reason to get out of the house, I joined this local board game club.
Oh,
And it worked.
How long was this ago, by the way?
10 years,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah. Maybe less than that. Maybe 9 years, 8 years, something like that. But yeah, I joined this board game club just as a way to make friends and meet people, and it worked, and got really, really into board games. So it was actually a really great time to be in there. There was loads of cool games coming out at the time, so it was really exciting, and lots of things to discover. And it's just kind of a quirk of my personality is that I'm a very creative person. So whenever I kind of get into something, I usually try and find ways of contributing to it as well, So when I was a teenager and I was into music, I was also playing the guitar and, things like that. That's my kind of personality there. So I was playing board games and I thought, I think I could make a board game. I could make a couple of board games. And so I started making board games. And they all were rubbish and they went nowhere. But it was good practice. And then I moved to Ireland about 5 years ago. I'm from Ireland, and we moved back here, my wife and I. And I joined a board game developers group in Dublin, which is a group that I now run. They're called Playtest Dublin. And I started going there, started bringing my designs there and kind of working on them and building up on them. And before I knew it, I was what I would call myself a board game designer. So at this point, I've had dozens of games released through myself, print and plays and downloadable things. A few Kickstarters that I've run under my belt, and I've got 2 games with more traditional publishers as well. So a couple of years ago, I had Tag City come out, which is like a dice rolling roll and write game. And just this February, I had Letterpress come out through Osprey Games as well. So yeah, I got into board games as a way to make friends, and I thought I could do it, so I started making my own.
Wow, so very cool. I mean, I heard of Tag City and Letterpress as well. So those are, I think I played Letterpress.
I hope so. It's a word game. It's word game, but it's drafting as well. So I describe it as kind of like Scrabble mixed with Sushi Go.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a pretty good way of getting people on board, because everyone knows Scrabble, and then you get to introduce them to those kind of drafting mechanics and ideas there.
Yeah. Anyway, but we're going to have the star of the show, which is your new game that's on Kickstarter. So tell us more about Luzon Rails.
So Luzon Rails is a cube rails game. And if you haven't heard of cube rail games before...
I haven't played a cube. I don't think so.
Okay, so the most famous ones would be things like Chicago Express or Irish Gauge. And the idea behind these games, and Luzon Rails is among them, is that they kind of distill down those big, kind of like stereotypical rail games that you sometimes see in board gamer circles. These 18xx games. And in these games, people are like rail barons, and they invest in companies, and they build track, and they run the trains, and bankrupt each other and all sorts. And they take about 6 hours, right, to play.
Yeah.
So that's an 18xx game. The idea behind a cube rail game is that it takes these enormous experiences and it kind of distills them down and abstracts them somewhat and tries to create something a bit more manageable, a bit more for a different audience, I suppose. Fun for a different audience, right? So Luzon Rails takes those ideas and it attempts to create a game that you can teach in about 10 minutes and you can play in about an hour. So in Luzon Rails, you'll be buying stock in these 5 rail companies, and then you don't own the company, you're an investor in the company. And once you're involved, you can start influencing the companies to try and raise the stock values. So you can build track and you can develop little towns around the island. And because you're investing, there's nothing to stop other players from also investing in the same company. And so what you end up having is these really interesting, overlapping and conflicting incentives between the players. And actually, that's where most of the game is kind of like negotiating. If I do this, then Jim is going to benefit from it. But if I do that, then like Sarah's going to benefit from that. So what can I do to try and benefit myself the most, while kind of like shorting the other players a little bit? And it ends up creating this kind of really interesting push and pull kind of system, where you're trying to not help everyone else too much, or trying to spike them and trying to limit the impact on yourself there. So yeah, takes about 10 minutes to learn, about an hour to play, and lots of interesting levers to push and pull, but without a big rules burden in there as well.
Oh, so cool. Very cool. Now, the main draw for me for this is because, of course, I'm a Filipino American. I was born in the U.S., but a lot of the cultural ties and stuff, especially with family and parents, is always there with us in family. But I want to know what inspired you to use the Philippines as the setting for your game.
So the setting came before the game. I've wanted to make a game about the Philippines for years now. My wife is from Manila, and so over the years since we've been married, I spent a lot of time there. We visited a lot, and Manila and other parts of the country. So for a long time, I've wanted to make a game about the Philippines, and then some time back, I had the idea of making this particular train game. Married it with the Philippines idea, and then they kind of began to feed off each other. So basing it in the Philippines gave me lots of interesting mechanics to play around with and ideas, because the history of rail in the Philippines is not an enormous history, but it's quite interesting. But it also, building railway there is quite difficult because you have competition from the coastal shipping as well, because it's an archipelago?
Archipelago, yeah.
You have this big coastal shipping industry, right? So if you want to build trains in this country, you've got to kind of like compete with these other companies going around with their ships. And so that informed lots of ideas and mechanics in the game, and they kind of bounced around like that, So the game informed a lot of, the theme informed a lot of new mechanics, and then I got to kind of play on those and build upon the theme some more. So yeah, literally I've visited a lot. I've been in the Philippines a lot. I enjoy the culture.
That was my next question. So yeah. No, actually, the last time I've been there was about 2 years ago, and right between during New Year's. So I was really New Year's and Christmas. So that was the interesting experience I have.
Same for me, actually, about 2 years ago.
2018 December. That's what I did.
Yeah, we could have crossed paths and never known it. But I was not in Manila at the time. I was in Siargao. Oh,
okay, yeah. Well, we're in Palawan during Christmas time, so.
Oh, right, I've been there. It's nice.
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice. I want to. I don't want to get off the rails of this conversation, but I was completely sick when I was over there. Yeah. Oh? Manila. We stopped in Manila, and then we got to Palawan. And then I got totally sick, probably on the plane. It was dreadfully sick, like Christmas time.
I wonder why. What did you eat, maybe? Or
I don't think it's eat. I think I caught a bug. It must be something.
I think when you're on the plane sometimes, right, and you're tired, and your immune system is like, yeah, I've been there. I've been to Corona, so
Yeah. So, but I'm like this is my vacation, and my body has to go and do what I want. And my favorite thing to see there was the underground river.
Yeah.
That was such otherworldly for me.
I haven't been. I didn't go. That's the other side of the island, I think, isn't it?
There's too many things to see.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
there are.
Well, the
So
excuse to go back.
I know. I know. I'm feeling like once I was almost crying. I didn't want to cry on the plane, but I was almost crying when I'm leaving.
Oh no.
But of course, we went to Korea and we spent like 12 hours there. So, yeah. I mean, it's so. What I want to say, it's so great to see more games about the Philippines. There aren't very much.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the thing that bothers me is that the ones that there are all about the war. So
Yeah, I know. If listeners, if you go to Board Game Geek and just type in like the theme Philippines, you see like about 20 games about the Philippines map as in a war setting. And
there are a few,
I'm
I
hoping, I'm hoping to change that too. You know.
there's one. I know Filipino fruit market is one of them.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Pierre
I'm gonna go
Sylvester.
I'm gonna go off topic, but I'll
Yeah,
stop.
Pil Sylvester. Yeah, no, Pil Sylvester. I played this game. Which is there's two games in that. Tindahan and the Bastos.
In Filipino fruit market.
Yeah. So
Ah.
yeah, I played Tindahan, and also there's Manila. I think that's the biggest one that people would know.
Oh yeah, but I saw the cover of that and I thought it looked a little. Well, it didn't appeal.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm gonna. I was gonna quickly say that it's a kind of like betting stocking game where there are boats that you're trying to get the goods on, and then whatever boats gets, the stock goes up to that market. It's really fun.
You made it sound more appealing, actually. Maybe
If
I
you have a
should
chance
change.
to try it out, it's quite good. I think it needs a bit more development in modern times. I'm thinking retheming it because again, there's a lot of disconnect, especially when you're inspiring to take a lot of things from different countries. It's like, you know, I don't know about this part of the history, you know, but I like to see more modern things about the Philippines or something that's a bit
Yeah,
more relatable.
yeah, I agree. Oh, there's a company that does. There's a game they've got a game called Darna.
Power to the People, GMT. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, that's a different thing. Actually that's a modern one too. That's about
Yeah.
Marcos, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of a guy. There's a guy called Maz Ravello. Is that right? No, Max Rudola. Max Ruloda, who makes sorry, I'm rambling here. There's a game called Darna, which is a license, I believe, a comic book license. And
Oh, Darna! Oh, see that thing.
The company behind that have got quite a few new Philippine themes games coming out there. So
Oh, I gotta check it out then. Do send
they
me a
have.
link after the show.
Yeah, they will.
Anyway, let's get back on rails onto your game. Okay.
Sorry about that.
So I'm looking at the game and looking at the board. It's a very nice looking board, too.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
So that's the work of Jessie Cabazan. She's from and now where's she from? She's from the Philippines, but she's not from Luzon. She's from somewhere else that I've forgotten. But she's a local. She lives in Ireland. She actually lives up the road from me. And she's an illustrator. So when I realized I was going to make a game about the Philippines, I wanted to have Jessie on board to illustrate it, to give it some authenticity, you know, and to help kind of make sure I wasn't kind of being disrespectful to any kind of topics or something like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And to just do it right. And she did an amazing job, you know. A lot of these cube rail games are very plain looking, and she's just made it really, really stand out, I think, with some gorgeous illustration there.
Yeah, for me. It looks like it's a very subtle, kind of relaxed look too, just like the Philippines. On the island parts, that's it. You know, the beach parts. But I also like the designs of the icons that you have here for the companies.
Yeah, so we could have gone historical with those, and I think people would have liked that. But you know, it's our game, so we made them mean something to us instead. So like we've got Cabazan Express there, which is Jessie's surname, and then Cynic Tyler is named after my daughter, and ECH is named after Jesse's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have Klingson, which is named after my father-in-law, and Mayon, which is named after the volcano there.
Yeah.
But I think it look amazing. Like I gave Jessie the brief and then didn't talk to her for a few weeks, and she came back with this pretty much finished. And I was just like, man, this is just fabulous. Like, it really does look something else.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to tell more about the game? Some what the players would be expecting, like some of the strategies that they might be planning with it, or how did like the stocks build up?
Yeah, so the game is really simple. There's only like 4 actions you can take, or something. I think it's 4 or 5 actions that you can take in the game. You just play a card and you do the actions on the card, and then move on from there. But it creates this kind of push and pull system that gives you loads of interesting things that you can do. So at the start of the game, you auction shares and you do bid on these shares and you pay some money. And the trick is, when you buy a share for a company, you get to then do things with that company, and somebody else can also buy a share in that company and they can do things with it. But the other thing is, when you buy a share, you give money to the company. It goes into the company's treasury, all right? And then as the game goes on, you'll be building track, which is paid for out of the company's treasury. You don't pay for that yourself. Or you'll be developing the little towns or raising money in other ways. And that's all you do, those 4 things. But then through those 4 different things, you have this stock market that's kind of fluctuating there. And it gives you all these like interesting possibilities and directions you can go in, while keeping it all very quite it's very clear, like what the board state is often very clear. You can see exactly what can happen, what the possibilities are. So there's no like in some games you have lots and lots of rules that kind of obfuscates what the future might entail. In this one, it's the players themselves that are going to kind of try and wreck your plans and kind of mix things up and hide things. So, for example, you could do things like you can force players to overbid on things. If they spend too much, then you can just hold another auction the next turn, and then they've got no money, and you can get it for almost nothing. And you can kind of play around with the auction mechanic there to try and get an advantage that way. Or maybe you want to get a cheap share in a company you don't really care about, but somebody else is very invested in. And then once you're in that company, just ruin it. Just waste all their money by driving off into the mountains.
Make it to a train wreck.
Yeah. Just literally just train wreck the company. You can also do things like you can try and race to Manila. If you do that, if you get to Manila, you get bonus payouts because you got to the capital. So congratulations, You can try and cut off regions, so especially down in the peninsula in the south there. You can try.
Yeah, I can. If you see the map, it is really based on the Luzon, which is the top area of the Philippines, the northern areas of the Philippines. Like you can see how there's little neck bottles in the bottom part.
Yeah, exactly right. Around Manila, you've got this tight area, and then down further south, you have this bit where there's only one way through, and if you just go and block that up with all your trains, then it's hilarious. So you can just kind of. But the thing is, there's another thing to bear in mind is that you've got a portfolio of shares. You're not just all invested in one company. So if someone wrecks your company or the company you're invested in, it's not the end of the world. You've still got other ways around it, And that's the thing you can do as well is you can just buy shares in companies that other people are working on and just kind of ride off their success a little bit. And as we also have this mechanic about the shipping, the coastal shipping, where you can kind of you want to try and connect the inland industrial towns to the coastal towns to kind of get the maximum payout, but it takes takes some time, and people might try and interrupt you in the process. So do you do that? Do you risk it, or do you just kind of rush through and try and grab what you can, and then see if you can end the game early while you're just ahead or something like that? So you've just got these few rules, 4 actions to think about, but within those 4 actions, you've got tons of opportunities and potential there to do weird and unusual things. And I think that gives the game as well. It gives it a lot of replayability. You never quite know how things are going to shake out, even though you can see everything and it's all there. There's lots of trickiness you can kind of do and lots of interesting maneuvers you can pull off in that kind of space.
Yeah.
I think that's what you expect. This kind of tricky game of messing each other up a little bit.
Cool. I mean, I haven't been playing a lot of train games. I mean, but I've been playing a lot of stock games, so that really intrigues me. But something to get into train games for that, which leads into my next question, is what kind of gamers would you think would like this game?
So the game is really simple to play. So this is actually something I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. It's not complicated. It's quite straightforward, but it does have this kind of trainy theme to it. So I think if you haven't played a lot of board games, or if you haven't played a lot of train games, then it's a good place to kind of enter into that space. It's not complicated. I mean, for example, even the stock holding isn't complicated. You can't sell shares; you can only buy them. So there's a whole aspect of it that's simplified and abstracted away. So yeah, if you haven't played a lot of board games, it's a good place to enter, and it gives you the kind of like streamlined experience with lots to play around with. But then if you've played a lot of games before, like if you've played a lot of those big train games, or you've played a lot of other cube rail games, I think Luzon Rails does a lot of unique things by itself as well, and give you lots of different levers to pull. So I have a hard time answering that question. I don't know if it's for one specific kind of person or just. I guess people who want to kind of experiment.
It looks like it can fit. I mean, I think you built a game so that it's simple enough for a lot of gamers to understand, but it's also interesting enough for people who play train rail games and even stock games for them to play as well.
Yeah, I think the kind of person would be the kind of person who enjoys playing kind of tricky games and kind of unusual things going on, and kind of it's not take that issue. No, that's the wrong word. That's completely wrong. But it has a lot of kind of like tricky moves to it and interesting maneuvers you can kind of pull off, and things that are unexpected. So I think players that like to experiment a little bit and see things that are a little bit quirky and unique, I think would really suit those kind of players.
Okay, cool. Okay, looks like we're running a little out of time here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap things up. So Luzon Rails is about, well, from our discussions, gonna just 12 days. So you have about a week in order to check it out, see if this is a game you like, and this is something that you want to support, right? Anyway, just to do any more closing, Robin, where can we find you?
You can find me robin-david.com, or just jump onto Twitter, which is where I'm very active. My username is robinwriting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by the way, it's Luzon is Luzon. If anyone is curious about that, I mean, mainly this video, this podcast would be. I mean, not this podcast. This interview would be on YouTube, but also I can post it up elsewhere too. Okay. Anyway, that covers Luzon Rails. So do check it out. Robin, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, sir.
All right. Until next time, I'm Ferdinand the Cardboard Stacker, and keep on stacking games.